was, are my numbers good? So we dove really deep into that question. And as we came out the other side of that question, the business owner wanted to know, how do their numbers compare to other people in the industry? Well, honestly, the truth is we really don't care how our numbers compare to anybody else in the industry. Well, at least on a high level. Obviously, we want an industry benchmark, but each part of the country is significantly different. And as we've driven in and dove into the numbers in my business, and I started to compare my business of 25 years to other industry leaders in the Northeast, the South, the Southwest, and different parts of the country, it really wasn't a fair comparison because we all have significantly different overhead recovery numbers. And what it costs to put out a crew in the Northeast is significantly different in the South or Southwest. So what I would point as a point of concern is, what does it really cost in your market to put out a crew? What does it cost for your business to operate? And are your numbers good relatively to the numbers you want to produce? So as we dive into this, one of the things we look at as we dive into a software system, a CRM, customer relationship management software, is how do we track our daily KPIs, key performance indicators? So one of the biggest things in my business here, before I pop out the screen and show you how we do this, is I wanted to know, how was I doing on a daily and weekly basis per crew? Now, were we profitable on an overall average throughout each day and each week per crew? There was some distinct winners and losers as far as crews. And then how do I go in once or twice a year and go in and say, okay, even if I'm making money on average, how do I non-emotionally go into each and every single mowing company or customer, or fertilizing customer, or one-time landscape maintenance customer, and actually dive in and say, based on my operating costs and my budgeted time, am I actually making a net profit? So what I'm going to do is kind of lift the hood and show you how in my company that we created a non-emotional way to raise the prices and create public accountability with quality control in a day-to-day and week-to-week basis for the crews, and then how to raise the prices with non-emotion and keep our most profitable clients, but only raise the prices on the customers that were really losing money. So instead of alienating our most profitable clients and going and have them shop our competitors, we kept them tight and close, but we took our not profitable customers, or at least profitable clients, and went out and raised the prices and minimize the risk of raising those prices. So first thing I'm going to do is dive in and open up the screen here. Any questions on the live or recorded version, I'm happy to tackle too as well. But the first thing I want to do is go in and take a look at what we actually did in Service Autopilot. So this is a test account. To the left, we have the client's name and address. But what we're looking at the service of lawn mowing. And we've got the city, zip code, and the crew assigned. Obviously a test account, but there's certain things that we really want to look at. So whether you're using Service Autopilot or another customer relationship management software, it doesn't matter. But this is going to give you the detail, no matter what software you're using, that you should be looking at, in my opinion. And I'm also going to highlight some mistakes in this test account as well, that you should be looking at if you're using Service Autopilot or any other software. But this is a closeout day screen, and this is the most important screen that I would recommend in Service Autopilot or any other comparable software that you're looking at. So in Service Autopilot, the idea is the mobile, or you physically type in the start and end time. So we know exactly when they started, when they ended, and any applicable drive time with this. So we know, first thing we're going to see is a start and end time that makes sense. So does it make sense? The start and end time, is it reasonable as we're scrolling down through this, or is it like literally a minute or two in between the start and end time? So that's an obvious error where the crew went in and clocked in and said they did the job, they clocked in and out in like a minute or two to get to the next job. So obviously you want to adjust that. So this is the last point. A human person can touch this before the invoice is generated. So if you're using Service Autopilot, basically the closeout day screen, once this is completed with a little checkbox, if you're not billing daily, But even if you're really billing daily, weekly, or monthly, the invoice is automatically generated basically at midnight or after the job is completed. So this is the last time to check that the start and stop time is accurate. So one of the worst case scenarios that we see as a certified advisor of Service Autopilot is sometimes somebody has a time and materials job and someone actually goes in and clocks in and out in 2 to 3 minutes, but maybe you have a 3-person crew, guys and ladies on the crew, and maybe it's 3 hours. So really 3 times 3 is 9. So you've got 9 hours at say $50 an hour. And when it automatically generates, if no one's physically sweeping through this at the end of the day or the next day, you've literally lost out on 9 hours of billable hours. You're billing out 3 to 4 minutes. And hopefully the consumer is honest, but if they're not, you've lost out on that revenue. Other thing we're looking at is production reports. So how many square feet can we mow or trim, or in home cleaning industry, how much square footage can we clean in an hour? So we've got production rate reports to update your production rate based estimating. And then in addition, we've got job costing reports, which we're getting into. So really important that we need to have this here. So it's the last point a human's going to touch it for our production, payroll, and job costing. Next thing we want to look for is make sure there's a budgeted hours here for every job. In this instance, in this test instance, this is correct. We're good. Now, rate, we've got a $0 amount here, and everything else is filled in. So everything's good except this 0 rate. And what we see in most clients is maybe this account, in a normal instance, not this test account, but would be a installment billing. So maybe there's $1,000 a month installment billing, and part of the installment billing is lawn mowing. So most people on the job put the rate 0 because they're scared that it may double bill. But if it's associated to the contract or in V3 installment billing, it won't. But if you have no data in, you have no data out. So you want to make sure you have a rate on there. So I purposely picked this day a few years ago in the test account to show you that. So now that we have this data, the idea here is how do we track this on a daily basis? Are we profitable? Are we not profitable? And how do we at least twice a year raise the prices on these jobs that aren't profitable without any emotion? So what I'm going to do is pull out our job costing KPI example here. So traditionally, this comes out completely blank. So I'm going to delete this out just so you can kind of see what happens. So our KPI sheet is key performance indicators plus accountability. So the idea is this is emailed to the person accountable to it in the morning at about 5, 6 in the morning. And then at 1 p.m. and 5 p.m., if they don't do their homework and get this in, it text messages them on their cell phone saying, hey, get your homework done. But these are the things in a business that you really need to have done, in my opinion, for success. So if you're kind of going to the day-to-day grind and you're like, yeah, we're probably making money, but you don't know till November, December, this is the part that was missing in my business, and this is why we made this. And now this is why we're sharing this. So the idea is we go to this closeout day screen and we go down to the bottom and say, okay, based on budgeted hours, 21.59, we're going to plug that in here. And we would grab the clock in, clock out for payroll. So whether you're doing it in Service Autopilot or Gusto or whatever it is, I don't care. We're going to go in and say, okay, it's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that would be their approximate time. So we're just going to ballpark it, but fictitiously, this is what we're looking at. So we've got a 10-hour day. We're gonna plug that in. And apparently when I deleted that, I upset the formatting, but we'll leave it for the live version here. So let's go in and all right, so we got 7 to 5 p.m. Total hours is 10 hours. Lunch, we're going to say we got a half hour. And number of people on the crew, and there's 2 people on the crew. So the idea here is we've budgeted 21.59 hours, and that's right off our dispatch board. We've pulled the clock in and clock out for the actual payroll. So when they clocked in the morning, when they clocked out. Total hours is 10, lunch is a half hour, people on the crew, and number on the crew. So when we're going in here, I'm going to grab the power cord here so we don't lose this. All right, we are good. And we've got 2 people on the crew. So what the sheet does is it actually goes in and says, okay, based on this, we've got 20 hours. Lunch for 2 folks is an hour. And our basically our payroll hours is 19 hours. So our budgeted hours is 21.59 based on our payable labor payroll hours. We're 2.5 hours under budget. So in the gray cells here, we've created this formula where it automatically calculates. So right now we're at 113%. So the way we created this is we didn't necessarily say that our guys and girls in the crew weren't smart. They were very intelligent. But how could we go into our English speaking, Spanish speaking, and everybody in between and translate this in a very simple, simplistic message? So if you were 2.59 hours under budget, you gave 113%. So you crushed it. You did a really good job. So let's say fictitiously went to dispatch board and this 21.59 really was 19 hours. Now this number is jumped to 100%. So that's an easy conversation. Hey, guys and girls on the crew, you gave 100% with a quality constraint and you gave 100%. You did your job. You're not over or under budget. You're right where you need to be. But what if this number was 18? And it took them 19 hours. So they were 1 hour over budget. So that's also an easy conversation. You gave 94% today. You didn't necessarily do your job. You're about 6% inefficient. So obviously the first thing we did at Callahan's is we instituted this, but we did put a quality constraint. Obviously that was a wrong move. So what we did to fix this is we had an apples to apples comparison. So based on this, we were able to go out and say whether you had 5 hours budgeted or 100 hours budgeted, it didn't matter. It was an apples to apples comparison. It's a percentage. So the first mistake we made was we actually put the budgeted time. So some crews got more, some crews got less, created animosity. So instead of creating animosity, we put a non-emotional percentage. Then the quality dropped because the crews had the right people on there where they were hustling and cutting corners to try to beat each other. They were competitive, which I don't hate, to be honest with you. But we needed to get that quality back up. So what we did is created a interior and exterior, internal, external quality control process. And what we did there is we had any compliments or complaints coming from consumers. We're a plus and minus system on this. And then we had a project manager, basically a production manager go out and do a sampling of each crew for positive and negative reviews as far as quality control. So we had the percentage of actual of budget plus a plus and minus on there for quality, internal and external quality review. So now we were able to put that on the whiteboard or the TV in the shop, and now we had public accountability for production with quality. So that was a big win. The team bought in, and it allowed us to basically create a team that was willing to have some investment in that. So as you scroll to the right, we've got crew 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on. But the idea now is you're able to track the wins and losses per day, budget versus actual, with a quality constraint and for the whole week. Now, as you scroll to the right, we get a total number, budget versus actual for each crew, summarized for the whole entire company. So what you're going to find traditionally is that some crews are carrying the company on their shoulders or their back, and then you've got a few that are bleeding you dry. So if you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm a big proponent of automating everything, but this is something you don't want to automate. This is something you want to spend 2 to 3 minutes per crew a day and physically have somebody in your office, whether it's you or an admin, track this. If you're using a virtual assistant like Pink Callers or Call Boss, they are also adding this up and doing this for our clients on this Kpi sheet that we provide. But the idea is the business owner now is getting daily feedback on your budget versus actual with quality constraints here. And now the crews that are losing money or not hitting their goals, you are forced, hopefully through the pain of seeing this, to go out and fix the problem. Now, cool part is now we know where we're making money on average. Each crew's making money each day or they're not. And on average, we see a company average here. So that's huge. Most of the companies we deal with don't know their break even. So what it costs you per hour to operate per man hour. Now, this is not a very scientific way, but it's a good starting point. So if you put your total expenses for the month in, say, January, fictitiously here, just because we have one day, after you reconciled your checkbook, and it was $400 of expenses minus products and subcontractors, it gives you an average break even. And it takes all of your months here and averages them. So your average break even here and your total man hours for the year. And as you go from 2018 to 2019 to 2020 to 21, we have a historical tab that keeps going. So you have a historical database. So if in 2018 and 2019, you're breaking even in January for $22 or $21 per man hour, and you go to 2021 and you jump up to, say, 28, you can go in and say, that's a red flag. Is that something intentionally wanted to happen? Or is there something I need to fix and look at? So that's a great benchmark. So the last part of this is job costing. So as we're in Service Autopilot or any other platform, particularly in Service Autopilot, this example is, how do I raise my prices? So the biggest mistake, at least in my opinion, on all the Facebook groups, is people go out at the beginning of the year and say, I'm raising my prices $2 to $3 per cut, or I'm raising my prices 3% or 4% on average. That is probably the worst thing you can do, in my opinion. I'm going to show you why. So what this sheet here does is allows you to raise the prices on every account that's not meeting your hourly threshold per dollar per man hour. So as we go into Service Autopilot, I'd recommend going into the Report Center and pulling up this report. Now, it's not a legacy report, but I like to call it the little toaster oven here. We go to Essay Report. So like I said, I like to automate everything, but at the end of the day, this manual process twice a year, I think is pays big dividends. So the first thing we're doing is under job cost reports. We're going to do a job cost summary, and you're going to go in and select, as this loads, either per crew or per service. Now I'm going to recommend you go in per service here and select the service. So traditionally that we would pull out is residential lawn mowing and commercial lawn mowing, just as an example. But it just could be home cleaning. It could be anything you do. We can also do it by resource or team. I recommend just pulling it out per service. So lawn care is lawn mowing, residential, commercial. Home cleaning is your weekly, your bi-weekly, your top to bottom deluxe, one-time deep cleans, whatever that is. Let's drive this out. And so you can see the header here that you got. And the idea is once you refresh, it loads all the data in, and you export it to Excel. And you take that Excel sheet and you're going to paste it into our Kpi sheet. And this Kpi sheet has some formulas built into it, so you don't have to figure it out. So this is an example of just 2 samples of one lawn mowing account. But you'd have probably 28 or 30 of these depending on the frequency you mow. So you got the address, you've got the date, and these headers here line up identical to the Report Center headers. But the idea is you've got the revenue total, so this is the price per visit of $54.28, budgeted man hours, so budgeted dollar per man hour is $50.26, so that's our goal. Actual revenue per man hour, we generated $54.28 and $60.31. On average, we generated $57.30. And where that is taken from is the scheduling dispatch job. So once again, I said that the closeout day screen is probably the most important screen in the whole entire system. So the reason why that is we want to make sure these start and stop times are accurate. And when you have the start and stop times here, that's the last point a person can physically touch this to adjust the data. But based on the start and stop times here, that's how we've generated our actual revenue per man hour. So on average on this job, we're making $57.30 per man hour per person. And this is our variance. So once again, once we get on this dispatch board, one thing I didn't hit on is I really recommend going into this columns and going in and selecting variance and actual hours. It's going to give you a little more clarity. So if I go back into that resource of Mow Crew number 1, When we scroll down, it looks like the original hours is we were budgeted 21.59 and our actual hours are 6.9, but really it was two-man crew. So the actual hours, the payroll hours on site, not including mobilization and extra time, non-billable, was 12.58. Now, the variance is over budget or negative is under budget. So that gives you a quick visual daily. Now, if you're using the Kpi sheet, obviously you know where you're at, but it's helpful outside of this. So job costing report is these two numbers are driven right off your dispatch start and stops. So the next thing is, as we're diving into this, is we've got the variance, we've got our target over under. So right now we're making $14 and $20 per hour more than we budgeted. Now our labor cost, in this test account, I don't have this set up, but if you were to have the right data in here under teams and employees, the thing that you want to look at is you want to go into your employees, go under edit, and the job costing payroll needs to be labor with labor burden. So I'm going to scroll into this here in a sec, and it's going to take a minute to load. This is quite a bit of data, but these are all the pieces. So if you're at my talk at SA6, the roadmap to success for SA, we talked about this, but our hourly compensation is $15 an hour. The hourly rate under costing here is labor with labor burden. So this is your FICA, unemployment, workman's comp. So 15 plus all that labor burden is 1786, and overtime with time and a half and labor burden is here. So in this test account, obviously we don't have all the data points, but if you did, the labor cost would come in here. And if we were using the mobile clocking in and out of the drive time, this would also populate. So the idea is we want to need data in to have data out. So the final part is if our revenue man hour goal, so the revenue per man hour goal is $60 per hour, and we're generating an average of $57.30, we're obviously about a little less than $3 per man hour below. So actually it's $2.70 below our goal of 60. So what the sheet says is our new mo price, our current price is $54.28 and our new price is $56.84. On average, we non-emotionally need to raise our price $5 or $2.56. And our total man hours per cut is this 0.94. So we'd also probably carry the custom field in of the church square footage. So we create an average production rate based on our guys and girls and our equipment. So we're not using industry average, using our actual production rate. So the idea here is if our goal, let's say, was 50 instead of 60, and we ran this report, we had several hundred clients, the sheet updates and says, well, based on 50 and you're $7 to the good and change, you don't actually have to raise the price. So $54.28 stays $54.28. Price per change is $0. So the idea that we should raise our prices as a percentage or a dollar amount across the board is ludicrous, in my opinion, because we had several accounts, more than several, that were over $100 an hour per man hour. If our goal is 50 or 60, we're $40 to $50 per hour to the good. So what we're really doing is when we raise that price emotionally, is we're pricing out and having our most profitable customers shop us. Now, our least profitable clients probably know they're getting a good deal, and they're our biggest headaches, most likely, which at least they were in my company. They usually stay when you raise the price because they already know we're still getting a good deal. So what I would caution you is if you're not tracking your KPIs, your daily accountability, through this process on a daily and weekly basis on average for the whole entire company, you're missing the boat and you're not going in and feeling the pain to go into the crew that needs to be fixed. You don't have the granularity to go in and show public accountability, whether they're on budget, below or above budget, and be able to reward them with a quality constraint. And then we should go in twice a year. I would say November, December, and then sometime after July 4th, right after there. Traditionally, depending on the market, that's the midpoint season, and we raise the prices. So it allows you to adjust the prices where you botch the pricing, because it's going to happen occasionally. And The next thing is we want to go in and say Mrs. Smith planted 20 trees in her front yard and the crew doesn't tell you. Well, that production rate has obviously changed. So it takes the emotion out of it. So new estimates and properties have changed. We raise it so we make money on those. And then the end of the year before we renew the contract, even if for a southern market, we go 12 months a year, that's a good break point to raise that up to make sure we're not hemorrhaging cash. Because what we'll find is sometimes it's cheaper to drop off a $20 bill at a residential or commercial property because that's how much money we're losing every time we go there. So my opinion, why would we want to go there and lose money? Let's raise the losers and keep the profitable ones. So if it's of interest, we've got our KPI and profitability accounting here. I'm going to put this URL in the bottom of the Facebook Live here on the Simple Growth page and have this sent out to you. But the idea is, even if you're working on your own, you want to create this sheet. Highly, highly recommend tracking the wins and losses, create public accountability, and get your team to buy in. So check out the URL in the comments if it's something you're interested in. We can get that up and running the next day or two. And, hopefully that helps you like it did me to do this. But the idea is once you have this, you can potentially create a piece rate pay system where you fix your labor costs. And once we did that at Callahan's, we didn't increase any people or change any people on the crews. We didn't change any equipment. But when we had clear accountability with a quality control standard, we're able to bill out an extra $1,300 to $1,200 per week per crew that basically became bottom line profit. So you heard it right, $1,200 to $1,300 a week, additional sales without any additional labor or equipment. And that was a huge win for us. And it put more money in our pockets as well as our employees. So highly recommend you take a look at it. Comments or questions, drop them below. Callahan's Corner. You ask the questions, we answer them live here on Facebook. We'll see you again tomorrow.